All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode number 238 of the Restore and Report podcast. We're super excited for the content we've got planned out for you guys today, as always. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for listening to this out of all you could have chosen to listen to. This is a podcast for young believers who are pursuing the goal of marriage and family and looking to get married as young as possible in a healthy way. My name is Seth Hensley, and I'm joined by my co-host Landon Mock. We come on twice a week, every week, on Thursday and Sunday to discuss not only the importance of getting married young, but we equip and encourage you in your pursuit of that goal. And we're just really excited for what we're going to be doing for you guys today. We've been on a kind of a pattern of giving you the best date ideas here and kind of the ideal date in all sorts of different scenarios. So we've covered the ideal coffee date, the ideal movie date, the ideal hiking date. And today we're going to go over everything you want to know going into your first date with someone. So if you've never met this person before and this is the first time you're meeting them, first impressions are a big deal. And so we're going to kind of go through everything you want to do on a first date. It's been a while since Landon and I have gone on a first date with our spouse. He met I'll let you kind of him tell you the story in a second, but I met my spouse in early December of 2022. So it's been a few years. But Landon, when was the first date you had with Maddie?
Yeah, so we started talking during the which I hate that term, talking, but
Yeah.
that's the term that my wife uses, and we started courting during the COVID year. So I think COVID shut down my job around April of 2021. If that, yeah, I think that sounds about right. But we started talking in September of 2020. So we would hang out a little bit, but there wasn't much open to go and do, if that makes
Right.
any sense.
Yeah, that was a challenge. Yeah. So you'll be able to give the perspective of the COVID year. I mean, that shook everything up. There were virtual dates going on. People were doing all sorts of crazy stuff
Yeah.
during that. I mean, Zoom was free and there were calls every other day with people and at work and everything. But today we're going to be going over the roadmap to the perfect first date. Is the term that Brett McKay uses. We're going to be giving you an Art of Manliness article as the source for this episode. I'll include the link to all the sources we use in this episode in the show notes if you're interested in checking them out for yourself or listening to Brett McKay. I would highly recommend you check out the Art of Manliness podcast, whether you use YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. He's on it all. And he has just thousands of articles for you guys online on theartofmanliness.com. Wonderful resource for all of you young men who are growing up and setting the foundation for your life. He has articles on this website, guys, that cover everything, like, I mean, oil changes, how to dress for different events, how to do first dates, what to do when you get a windfall of money, how to save, how to deadlift, how to do all this stuff that men, how to be strong, how to do all the stuff that men need to be able to do in their life or may want to do in their life. And so just a wonderful resource. Check him out. Again, artofmanliness.com. Brett McKay and the Art of Manliness podcast is his information there. But we're going to be going over an article today that he put on that called the roadmap to the perfect first date. And this is going to be a really good one for you guys. As again, 80% of you are young men looking to get married young as soon as possible, and you're 18 to 22. So this is perfect article for you. He starts off by saying here that you've decided to stop hanging out with women and start dating them, and I love that because there's a lot of times this ambiguity in a lot of the ways that men and women hang out with each other and associate with one another, and we use phrases like hang out or talking, like Landon said, or something that's very ambiguous. And I think it's good again to just be really forward with a woman and declare your intentions and just let her know where you stand. Like, I have regrets in this, thankfully not with my wife. I did make my intentions very clear with her because I had learned to do it by that point. But there have been times, guys, in the past where I did not communicate effectively enough my intentions with someone that I was going on a date with, and I deeply regret that, but I'm so grateful that I did not do that with my wife. I was very forward, and I let her know my intentions up front. I let her know that I was in her as more than a friend, not just somebody that I wanted to hang out with. And but I think that is an important conversation you should have. A lot of people call it DTR, define their relationship, but just kind of letting them know that you're actually seeing them as a romantic partner and a potential spouse and somebody that you'd like to get to know better and move towards the goal of marriage with. All that language is better than just saying, hey, do you want to hang out, or hey, we're talking, or we're in a situationship, or all these terms that are used to, define things very ambiguously. I don't think those are very good. But so he says, you stopped hanging out with women and you've started dating them, bully for you. Now you must take on that ever intimidating first date. While a first date can be a road fraught with obstacles and snafus, when you have the proper guide, you can make it go off without a hitch. To help you not only get through your first date with a woman, but also enjoy it, we provide the following roadmap. So he starts off with a prelude here, and he's going to he has several articles that we're going to go through with you guys. And one of them is the most common question that I hear guys talking about is what to wear on the first date. And he has a really good diagram that we're going to get to for that in a minute. But he says plan, and this is just huge. And Landon, I'll let you talk about this in a minute. But to me, when I listen to my wife talking about her past experience with guys, but also, just what she likes in a date, the last thing she wants is to be given the steering wheel and have the burden of planning the date and deciding what we're going to do. I mean, she does not want that responsibility, and she does not like it when if a man were to show up and basically have no plan, because kind of what that communicates to a woman if a man shows up and has no plan and just says basically, hey, do you want to hang out, and doesn't provide any sort of activity that he would like to do with the woman, or context in which the meeting should take place, that's communicating to that woman that, hey, I'm just interested in kind of hooking up. I don't really care about, doing something with you. I don't really care about getting to know you as a person. I'm not putting effort, investment, and time and thought into this date. I'm just wanting something out of it for me. And so the context in which that takes place doesn't really matter. I don't really care where we are, how we meet. I'm just looking to get something done. Bam, thank you, ma'am. That's really all I'm interested in, and that is something that is going to turn the good kind of woman off really fast. So you want to have a plan. Don't just say, hey, do you want to hang out? Please do not say that. You need to have a plan. Say, hey, would you like to do this specific thing on this specific day? And be really clear about it. A lot of women like to go on first dates with a man in a public space because, again, they are the weaker, more vulnerable sex physically. And so if they're going to be in an environment with a man they've never met and they don't know your character, they might want to be in a place where they're protected by, other eyes and just social rules and things. So that's something to consider. But Landon, what do you think of that first step that he gives? Plan your first date well here.
So coming from the perspective of, a believer, we know that the man is supposed to be the head of the household. And what that indicates when you come in with a plan is that you are going to be able to take initiative when dealing with just day-to-day things. And I especially in my experience, how many times have you been with a girl and the girl, you say, hey, well, where do you want to go eat? Well, I don't know. You go through that charade, and it's like they really don't know where they want to go. Like, to us, we know where we want to go, and we're like, I would eat here, or here. And they literally just don't know where they want to eat. And it makes it so much easier for them and kind of takes that burden off of them of having to lead you when you come into this date and just say, okay, here's my plan. We're going to go do this, do this, do this. I'll have you home by this time. What do you think? It makes it a lot easier for that woman to say yes to the date, first off. I mean, let's say that you're not super familiar with this woman. She wants you to have a good time as well. If she genuinely wants to go on a first date with you, she wants you to have a good time just as much as you want her to have a good time. So she doesn't want to just come and say, well, here's what I want to do. She wants to make sure that you're okay, and that's that nourishing spirit that women have. Yeah. I think that it kind of ties into that when they say, they want you to have a good time. So when you come in and you show that you're going to be a leader and that you say, here's something I think you would like, here's a place that I think we could go, here's what we can do after, and here's when I'll have you home. It shows that you are one, a leader, two,
Yeah.
respectful of her time, and
Hmm.
three, you genuinely are putting thought into this.
Yes, amen. Yeah, that's what they really want to see, I think. And guys, the planning the day is a burden. Like, I mean, Landon, you can speak to this too, but it's like hard, and especially like implementing it and making it happen. That could be challenging, guys. Like I've been on dates where like if I went kayaking or something, I was required to get a vehicle. I had a car, so I was required to get a vehicle that could transport the boats, get the boats loaded, make sure the boats didn't fly off the back of my truck and hit somebody else on the highway, get them to location, get them set up, back them into the water, that kind of like, women don't want to do this stuff. Like it's a burden that it's your job, I would say, as a man to take off of their shoulders. They really often, and I know again, there are exceptions to this rule, especially when you get a lot of really strong women who have ideas and want to do specific things, and that's great and all. But like a lot of women don't want to do this stuff. They don't want to be the one that has to implement and plan and make things happen. They're waiting for you to be a man, step up and do that job and lead them in that way, and basically take the weight off of her shoulders of doing this fun thing. Is the way Brett McKay puts it is he says, don't punt and ask her what she wants to do. Be a man. You're the one doing the asking, so it's your duty to come up with something that she will enjoy. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. His next point is he says, clean the car. And this is a huge one. This is something that I really did, especially when I wanted to make a good first impression. I always keep my car relatively clean as far as not leaving anything in it, but just vacuum your car out. Just make it smell good, vacuum your car out, especially just in the day-to-day grind of life. You putting sweaty gym bags in there and just mowing grass and putting weed eaters and gasoline in there. Just a guy's car gets used for all kinds of stuff that doesn't smell great. So just clean your car before you put this precious woman in the passenger seat. I think that can't be a bad step. He says, if you're picking her up in your car, give it a nice cleaning before the date. First impressions matter big time on the first date, and women will check you like a drill sergeant at a bunk inspection. Many women use the cleanliness of your car to gauge how you carry yourself for the rest of your life. That makes me think of Jordan Peterson. Just if your room's a mess, he would argue that the state of your mind is probably not orderly. And so, your environment, the way in which you live kind of indicates the health of your inner life. And so, I mean, I think the way that you present your car to a woman indicates, again, the state of your maturity, how selfless you are, how willing you are, again, to put in time, work, and effort. If your mind is in a good state, all those things are communicated in how you keep your environment and how cleanly and orderly you keep your environment. Just throw away everything that's in there, guys. Don't leave trash in there. Please don't make the seat so messy that you actually have to move it out, clean it out in front of her when you pick her up. Like, that is the worst thing you could probably do as far as picking a woman up with a dirty car. Landon, do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, I think that's pretty common sense.
Is huge.
Yeah.
And it should be common sense, but I really don't think that it is. Like, I
Yeah.
think that we have such a tendency to right now, especially when you're, let's put yourself in, my shoes. At the time I was, let's see, 19 years old, about to turn 20. I'm going to school, work, home. That's it. I wasn't doing all kinds of things afterwards. So my car was where I spent a lot of my time,
Yeah.
and that shows. I had tools in my car nonstop,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just everywhere. And
Yep.
on my first date, I unpacked all my tools and left them in the living room of my parents' house, in the middle of the living room, like that. I was like, I got to get them out, because, here's the other thing. You have to start thinking like a man and start thinking like a husband. And what comes to mind is, when me and my wife are out, what if there is a flat tire? Is your trunk cleaned out to where you can just get out, change it, and not
Right.
ruin the date?
Yes.
Like, you have to think of these things and prepare.
Yes.
And what that
Yes.
is doing is, it's like what you were saying with first impressions. This date, if you are prepared for the worst, she will notice.
Yes. That's
And
good.
you have to be able to think about those things and try to, you know, perceive what's going to happen before it happens. And all that's going to do is just show her, like, wow, he put a lot of thought into this date.
Yes.
This actually means something to him. He's not just taking me out to eat and then he's going to go off and just not talk to me again. You
Yeah.
have to show this woman that you are genuinely, interested, and that you are
Yes.
putting your entire thought into this.
Yes, actions speak louder than words, guys. It's so true. And the environment and the preparation that you put into this date, and that you make sure this woman has going into the date, is going to communicate how invested you are in this date. The next thing he says is get some. And guys, another thing I'll just say really quick before we move on. Like Landon said, make sure you've got a spare tire. Make sure you've got a new your oil change is up to date. Make sure you've got coolant in your car, your windshield wiper fluid. Everything is A-okay, squared away, your brakes are good. Please don't take a woman on a date if your air conditioner is not working. Get your air conditioning fixed. Take it to the shop, put Freon in it, whatever you have to do. Yeah. Borrow a car, absolutely.
This is not for us saying that you have to have all of your stuff together. Like
Absolutely,
you don't have to be 100% set up in order to go on a first date, but you have to show her that you are thinking of her comfortability. You are thinking of how you can make her the most comfortable that she can be in order to go on this date with you. And not only just showing her that, but imagine you go on a first date with somebody and it's 90 degrees in their car. The car is full of trash. You're going down the road, he just picked you up and the flat tire goes and you don't have a spare tire.
Yeah.
I mean,
Date ruined. It's over.
This date is awful. She's looking at you like, this guy don't know what he's doing. And if I was that woman, I would not go out with you again.
Absolutely. The last way you want to present yourself on a first date is incompetent. I mean, you've got to be competent and able to protect, provide, and preside over the event and make sure it's comfortable as possible, like Lana said. And one way to do that, Brett McKay argues here, is he says, get some cash. And I think this is brilliant because you never know what you're going to run into along the way. Even if the event you're going to is not a cash-only event and they take cards, you're going to want to have some cash just in the event of, like he says, valet parking or something like that. Other incidentals. If she wants a snack, or if maybe it starts raining and you need some ponchos or something like that, you're just going to want to have some cash on hand that you can spend just to be super prepared. It says dress up to show respect. Dressing not only leaves a good first impression, it's just plain respectful. It shows your date. Again, this is great. The way you dress, again, shows thought. There's no better opportunity to show thought in the way you go on a first date than in how you dress. And he says it shows your date that you thought enough about them to put your best foot forward. And when you show up in a pair of jeans and a t-shirt, it's telling your date, I had nothing better to do, so I came within what I was wearing. That's huge. He says, even if you planned a casual date, put on something dressy, casual. No need to bust out a tie. Go for something like a pair of jeans, a button-down shirt, a corduroy blazer, and a nice pair of boots. Shined, of course. And we're going to get into, maybe this might be a good time to get into the what to wear on a first date. Let me just share you guys this tab really quick. This is Brett McKay's chart for what he suggests you wear on a first date in different seasons, spring and summer. And kind of, I would describe this as casual and then semi-casual, or I'm sorry, a little bit semi-formal and then casual. He says wear a lightweight sport cotton coat. That's to me, that's pretty dressy. I mean, if you're going to wear a jacket, you're really going out there.
Yeah, you also have to think about, like, where are you?
Right, exactly, environment. Yes.
Where we live, this is going to be almost formal.
Yeah. This left
you
one,
put
yeah.
a blazer on, you're going to be looking a little more formal. And I think that when you do that, you also want to be very conscious of what you anticipate that she's going to be wearing.
Right. You don't want to dress her under the table.
That is something that comes to mind when I look at this. Is if I would have wore this to my first date, it would not have went well. She may have thought like, "Oh, that's nice," but at the same time, I'm dressed up and she's not. Well, that's going to put her in an uncomfortable spot. I think that the one on the right here is a much safer.
Yes, I agree.
Our area.
Yeah, unless you're going out to a formal dinner or a ballet or a show or something like where the occasion, like Landon said, the location demands that you dress a certain way, the event demands that. But like I said, this one on the left here is pretty dressy. So don't go over the top. That would be a little bit weird and maybe make her uncomfortable, especially if she was treating it as more of a casual outing. Again, if you're going to a really super formal event, again, like a play or a ballet or a show of some kind or even a fancy restaurant, a gourmet restaurant, that would be more appropriate. But look over here on the right. This guy's got on just a nice polo, not a worn polo, not one that doesn't fit well, not one that you had when you were a kid and you can barely squeeze into now and it makes your muscles look huge. You might think that looks cool, but it's probably a huge turnoff for her.
Yeah.
Don't wear stuff that's too small or too big for you. Just get something that fits really nice. It says get your hair cut the week before the day and don't try something new. Go with your usual routine. I think that's just pretty safe. I mean, you can't mess it up that way. He says wear a watch. I think that's super casual or super fashionable. Wear just something, and a watch or something, dark denim jeans or khakis. Those are great. He says canvas shoes or top sliders. Looks like he has some Converses on here. Just something that, again, is not super formal, but that does communicate effort. It says choose your shoes carefully. They say a lot about you, and women always notice them. That is true. What is it with that, Landon? Is your wife like this? My wife notices shoes and hands. Like,
See,
she really.
I think that I'm more like that than she is.
Okay, are you? Yeah.
The first thing I notice when meeting someone new is what kind of shoes they have on. And
Really?
it seems somewhat like I have a weird dynamic with that where I
Mm-hmm.
feel almost guilty,
Yeah.
because I'm like, I shouldn't be thinking about it. But at the same time, like, it really does tell you who that person is.
Yes.
And, just the shoes that you're wearing. And I'm not going to make a judgment, negatively. When you see somebody who comes in, like, for me, this is a lot in job interviews. I do a lot of job interviews at my current job. And when a guy comes into a job interview, I look and see, okay, what is he applying for? And what does his shoes tell about me? Or tell me about him? So if you're applying for a mechanic job and you come in with a dirty pair of work boots, I'm not going to judge that as
Right.
harsh. But if you come in for an office job, you're trying to get a manager's position, coordinator's position, and you're wearing, some random pair of tennis shoes, looks like you've been wearing them for 5 years, or you're wearing your
Yeah.
work boots that are busted up, and just, to me, that's like, okay, you should have put in a little more effort. So on a date, I think that that's super important that you wear a nice clean pair of shoes, something that it says something about you.
Yeah.
I think that a big part of this whole dressing for the date also can be showing her your personality. I mean, this is
Yes,
your first
absolutely.
date. This
Yes.
is the way that as soon as she sees you when you go to pick her up, she's looking at you and going, okay, I get a picture of who this guy is.
Yeah, absolutely. Dress the way you look good. I mean, like, I don't look good in everything that would be considered fashionable today. So, like, you've got to cater what you're wearing to your individual qualities. I mean, what I'll wear, I'll just show you guys. I actually brought it here today, and this is the shoe that I've worn on every single first date. I don't know if you could see it exactly, but
Yeah.
it's kind of a dress shoe, but it's not enough of a dress shoe to be super formal. It zips up on the side, and I just love these shoes because it's got a little bit of a dressy toe, but it's a very casual shoe. It's not something that you would wear, to a suit like a funeral or a wedding. It's not that formal, but it's not as casual as just a pair of tennis shoes or running shoes or something. So it does show effort, but it's not over the top that where it makes somebody uncomfortable, and it looks snazzy. It looks good. That something like that is what I would suggest. Again, though, you've got to make this your own. You're not going to have my exact style or my exact qualities. So just wear something that accentuates the good qualities about yourself, and ask the women in your life, if you have mom or sisters, what to wear on dates, because they're going to be super in tune with what would be something good to wear on different kinds of events, like Landon said. But really good there. I really like what Brett McKay is saying. Here, he tends to be more of the classy, etiquette-driven man, so he's going to be really a stickler as far as the rules go. I mean, he even mentioned shined shoes here. I mean, like, when was the last time you actually had your shoes shined, your boots shined in the modern day? So he's really hearkening back to just that old classic idea of a gentleman, and I love that. But it's also good to just consider the modern world that you're in, and the environment and the location in which you live, the area in which you live, and make it appropriate for that. It says call her and tell her. His next tip, he says, is call her and tell her exactly what you're going to do on the date. This is the big one that kind of harkens back to our first point Landon and I made. Have a plan. Telling her exactly what you're suggesting you do on the date is a great way to let her know you've put thought and time and effort into this, and that you're not looking to just get her into bed somewhere. Like, it really does communicate that. And another thing is, like, doing this, you don't have to be super dogmatic and tyrannical about it. You can just say, hey, here's some options. This is what I thought we'd do. Which one of these, A, B, or C, or D, do you think would be the most fun? And then she can choose from those plans if you're looking to have some of that coordination in there, but it still gives her the notion that you are like invested in this enough to have a plan. He says, while you might not think of getting ready for your date until a few hours before you pick her up, a lady likes to plan ahead and think of what she'll wear and how she'll do her nails and stuff like that. And again, this is a really good point. Giving her the what you're doing is going to let her know how to dress. Because imagine going on a date with somebody and you have no idea what you're doing or how to dress or anything. That would be a little bit daunting. It says, show your date that you have some gentlemanly forethought by calling a few days in advance. Again, he's using calling here. Usually things like this happen again through either text message or something like that. Now that's a little bit more outdated, but again, just a cell phone call, I think is totally appropriate here. And again, it's that face-to-face, not face-to-face, but the next closest level voice-to-voice interaction that you can have with this woman. He says, call her a few days in advance and tell her exactly what you're planning on doing with her. This will help her decide how she should dress and make herself up. Women really like being dressed don't really like being dressed inappropriately for an occasion. Moreover, by knowing what you two will be doing together, your date will feel more comfortable and relaxed and prepared, which results in her having a good time. Wait for the surprises after you get to know each other better. That's true. He's going to go into the pickup next, but Landon, do you have any kind of closing thoughts on just basically giving your date a plan?
Yeah, I think that him using the word calling is important. To me, calling is a more public version of communication. And what I mean by that is when you're on the phone with someone, the people surrounding you hear your conversation, and those are some of the things that I think of when discussing texting versus calling. Texting to me can be somewhat informal and can sometimes be misconstrued as secretive. I think that it's such a casual way of communication that it doesn't take a lot of action, doesn't take a lot of thought, and I think that people will notice that. So I think a phone call is the way to go.
Yes,
if you are able, I think that the best way to do this is to actually talk in person about your date.
Right.
You know, when me and Maddie first met, we hung out together. She would come and see me at work, or the first time we ever met in person, I drove to her house after work one day and just to see her and talk to her in person. And those are the moments where you can start to have these conversations, and I think that makes it a little more it shows your intention a little bit better. It shows that you are trying to feel her out. Plus, texting about your date, you're going to think things that you're going to have to read into those text messages to get her feelings about the date.
Right. Yeah.
If you can call, you can pick up on voice cues. If you can meet face to face, you can pick up on body language.
Body language, yeah.
I think that is very important to see how she really feels about this plan that you've put together. And do you need to call an audible? Do you need to try and figure something else out to make her more comfortable?
Right. Absolutely. The calling thing is really big, guys. Something that I did when I first met Lainey was I was under the impression, and I still kind of am under this impression, that texting was the coward's way out of asking a woman out. And I don't want to make a super dogmatic rule about it, but if you're scared to talk to or to ask a woman out, or you're nervous, it's totally normal, it's totally comfortable. I'm not shaming you for that. It's designed to be a momentous occasion. It has weight and glory to it, but it's like you've got to be willing to do the hard thing there. And even if you're uncomfortable, just step across the line. So something I did, well, I kind of want to nuance this too, but I was also aware of kind of this social trend where introverts will not talk on the phone. There are some girls out there who have this rule, and there are memes all over Facebook about, if you can text me, I will not pick my phone up. And there are people who are like this, who they will not talk on the phone if you have a way of texting them, because they consider that a better form of communication for whatever reason. It's easier for them. They have the time to get to it whenever they want, etc. And so I was also aware of that social trend. So what I decided to do was kind of blend these two worldviews together and do something that I thought would, not offend both. So what I did was I sent her a voice message using a messaging service. So I recorded a message in my own voice. I actually asked her out in person, or with my own voice, I should say. I didn't type it out, but I asked her out with my own voice, but I left it kind of like a message on her social media service so that she could get back to it whenever she wanted. And that seemed to work really well. So that's another option available to you now just through technology. If the phone call for whatever reason is not, if you don't have access to it, if for whatever reason you can't talk on the phone, you can still do a voice message today and leave that for her. But it says be on time is Brett McKay's next point. He says, as his grandpa says, a gentleman never keeps a lady waiting. Arriving late shows disrespect and creates unneeded anxiety in a woman. That's pretty basic stuff. I think we could probably just skip that paragraph. I mean, being on time, pretty common sense stuff here. His next one is come to the door. This one is huge. If you pick her up for a first date, go to the door. Do not sit out in her driveway and honk. And again, I'm not condemning any of you who have done this. I know that people have different, backgrounds and even understandings of what is good etiquette when it comes to dating. So, but I would say it really communicates something good, not only to her parents and her family, but herself as well. If you're willing to go to the door and meet people and talk.
That was going to be something that I would bring up is that a lot of times, and I forget this now because of, I've been out of this for 4 years almost.
Right.
You are not just dating. My mom used to tell me this every time I go on a date. You are not just dating this girl, you are dating her family.
Absolutely.
And if you're sitting in the car and you text her, hey, I'm here, you are not giving the respect to her family to lay eyes on you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not only that, but if you have followed the steps before all this, and you have planned the date, and you have dressed nice, you've cleaned your car, you've done all these things to prepare, you should want her father in particular to see these things. You should want her father to see that you are giving his daughter all of your attention. And that is huge. And I think that we, as more traditional men, we place a huge value on the approval of the father. So when you are putting this much effort into it, you are not only doing a disservice to her and her family, but to yourself by not allowing her family to see the effort that you've put into this date.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it is disrespectful. Exactly like you said. I mean, you've got to. It's accountability. It's okay if I don't make it back at the time I said I was going to make it back tonight with your daughter safely, and she's not been through something crazy. You now know what I look like. I mean, you've seen my face. We've talked. We've had a face-to-face interaction. You have the right to face your accuser. Is all that is just comes into play here. You have the right to face somebody who could put you in a vulnerable position. You need to have that face-to-face connection.
Yeah, and a simple handshake with the father is going to go a long way.
Absolutely.
That shows that you intentionally know that you are not just dating this girl, and you're not just taking some girl out to dinner. This puts you in the right mindset that this is not some random girl. This is someone's daughter that you are taking out to eat, that you are taking to a show, that you are trying to court. So it not only puts them at ease that you gave them enough respect to just shake his hand, but it also puts you in the right mindset before you get her in the car and drive off that this is not just some random woman. This is someone's daughter. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I think we could spend the whole episode on that one. I mean, just the importance of that. Go to the door. Make sure you're trying to impress not only her but the family. Like Landon's mom says, you're not just dating one person here. You're not just dating the girl. You are in it. You are getting closer to her family. I mean, a woman's family is super important to her. I mean,
you are intentionally striving to become a part of that family.
Exactly. Is this just two friends going out? This is not just two friends going out. You're trying to get to know this woman towards the end goal of marriage. If you're going to be a part of this family, you need to be actually putting an effort to get to know this family. Amen. you're 100% right on this, dude. But Brett McKay's next point is immediately compliment the way she looks. I think this is huge too. Don't be sleazy about it. Don't make her uncomfortable. Don't say something inappropriate. Stay away from the word hot is what I would do. Please don't do that. Just say, man, you look great this evening, or wow, that looks great
The
on you, or I love the
words,
color of your whatever.
the
Yeah.
words hot, sexy,
Yeah. Stay away from
all
that. Yeah.
those
Yeah.
are no. You
Red
do
flag.
not say that. In
Absolutely.
fact, I would argue that you probably shouldn't say that those two words until you are married to that woman. It is uncomfortable. You should not be
Yeah.
putting that out into her brain.
Right.
That makes it very uncomfortable. If someone said that about your daughter, how would you feel?
Right.
That's how you have to be thinking about these
Right.
things. And I can tell you right now that if someone said that about my two nieces, I would lose my mind. That it
Yeah.
would not go over well. So
Yeah.
you
Right.
have to be
Right.
thinking about those things. What
Right.
would you want a man to say about your daughter? What would you want a man to say about your family?
Absolutely. His two examples are you look stunning or that dress looks marvelous on you. He's also advising you to stay away from the more controversial language there, especially language that, violates intimacy boundaries. You're just, again, this is a first date video. If you're just meeting this woman, you don't, there's not a relationship that's been forged by fire here that you have the right to then impose upon. This is something that is brand new that you're presenting. You're putting your best foot forward and giving the best first
A
impression
good rule
ever.
of thumb is to compliment from the neck up, in my opinion.
Right.
I
Okay.
I think that if you are complimenting anywhere below the neck, you are getting a little too close to the fire. You need to maybe take a step back. You can say,
Okay. Your hair,
or the
maybe
person, the entire person.
the whole person.
So
Yeah.
if you are saying specifically, I don't really even like this dress looks
Dress looks
marvelous
great on you. Yeah. Okay.
because to
Too much.
me that can be misconstrued. I want to say, wow, you look wonderful.
Yes, that's great.
And then maybe start out with an entire person. You
Mm-hmm.
look wonderful. I really like what you did with your hair.
More specific. Yes.
You can
At the end.
start out with a very general and then pinpoint something that you really enjoy, and that lightens the mood. I know that my wife in particular, when complimenting her, saying you look gorgeous is going to make
Mm-hmm.
her feel good, but pinpointing something that she worked on is going to make her feel better
Right.
than just you look wonderful.
Right. Absolutely. Good rules there, Lane. I love those, man. He says open the car door for her. Again, I'm not going to spend much time on that. That's pretty specific. Again, it's going to be easy to open the car door for her if you went to her door. That's because you're going to be walking back to the car with her. So just
Never
don't.
do not open the door from the inside of the car for the love of
Oh
God.
yeah.
I've
Yeah,
seen
that's
people do that. You don't look gentlemanly. It's more disrespectful to open the car door from the inside of the car than to just leave it shut, in my opinion.
all that communicates is I didn't actually. I'm too lazy to get off my butt to actually show you that I care about you. I'm just gonna stay here and like sort of half do it to show you that
And it also just looks so uncomfortable. You're leaning
Yeah,
over the
yeah.
console. You're stretching and pushing, and you can't do it properly. It's not a good look.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you can, again, wonderful advice there. Just get out of the car. Again, you'll have already done that if you went to the door and took our advice in the previous on the previous point. Go to the door, walk her back to the car, open the door for her, offer your arm on the way back to your car is what I would do. But again, since you're just meeting this woman, that might be best left to when you're bringing her back from the date. It might just be more comfortable for you that way. His next point is the drive. That's his next subheading here. And he says, instead of music, try talking. This is huge. And I think this is just common sense. I mean, again, you're not taking this woman out to just listen to music in silence uncomfortably together. You're taking this woman out to get to know her. And again, bond with her moving towards that goal of marriage. Like, why would you just sit in a car with somebody listening to music? There's no point. Now, I do think there is, a point to music. Like he says down here, he says, if you play music, play it softly and keep the list classy. I think classy is a great word here. I would stick to an instrumental playlist. You can stick to the more jazzy dinner music, restaurant vibe kind of thing is what I would do. Personally, if it's a season, like if it's maybe Christmas time, you could play some instrumental Christmas music in the background that's really, really, really pretty, but is not limiting conversation by having lyrics in the background. That's something I would stay away from. But again, that's just personal preference for me. You don't have to do that. Landon, any thoughts on music and the conversation?
For me, music is a big part of my life. I'm a huge music fan, and I think that it can tell you a little bit about your date.
Absolutely, yeah.
So when I was going on a date, the intention was to have a conversation, and then let's say that you are communicating. One of the questions I'm going to ask is, what kind of music do you enjoy listening to?
Yes.
And then if
Yes.
allow her to then play you a song, and then
That's
you can talk
great.
about that song.
Conversation starter.
that
Yes.
that that allows you to develop more conversation. Allows you to get to know her better, and it allows her to open up to you even just a little bit, and that will start something that will go on for the rest of the date. So
Yes.
when you can get a little tidbit about her, not only will that tell you something about her, but it opens a door for her to be more comfortable with you in opening up on other things.
Right. Right. Absolutely, man. Couldn't agree with you more there. He says no movies is his next rule. Again, I'm with him on this. Now, I do know people who have successfully pulled off a sandwich date in which they started or ended with a movie, usually started with a movie and then went out to do other things together, which I kind of like those. It's a good, gives you something to talk about, not only the movie, but it's something you can experience together while still having the bonding of talking and conversation. So I would say he's right here as long as if you're, unless you're doing movies with accompanying other activities. And again, that gets into longer time. So I would just not spend as much time on movies as you would on other activities with her. He says keep it simple. You're not proposing to her, so there's nowhere need to go overboard on the first date. Keep the first date light, fun, and romantic. I would say I react to the phrasing go overboard. There's no need to go overboard, just because, again, you do want to show this woman that you're invested in this, and that you care about her, and that you put time and effort and thought into this date. You're advertising the husband that you're going to be should she say yes to you. I mean, this is huge. I mean, you've got to show. I would react to the phrasing there's no need to go overboard. Now, I know that you can go overboard and literally do too much stuff that it will make her uncomfortable, but like just show her that there was time and effort and thought there. He says both activities can allow you some ample opportunities to talk and get to know each other, with dinner and a walk or an evening at an art museum. Those are great dates. We'll get into the date ideas in the later portion of this review. But he says you pay, no questions. If she offers, just smile, say it's my pleasure, and hand the waiter your card. Again, Landon and I, being very traditional men here, are going to probably say that without question. Like, you pay on the first date, no questions or anything. More egalitarian couples will probably, suggest splitting the check or something like that. But I would say, again, just personally, from where Landon and I are more traditional men, we're going to say you pay, no questions. Am I misrepresenting you there, Landon? Or
no, you've hit the nail on the head. One of the comments that I would make, maybe I remember saying this to my now wife at the time of us dating was, I will pay, and maybe we can talk about you paying next time. But that never did happen.
Right.
It leaves the tension. If that's something that she's going to be dead set on, then you can talk about that at another time. You don't have to ruin your first date with her getting aggravated that you won't let her pay. Because like you said, there are people that will be dead set on splitting the check or something like that, and for me, that's not something that I'm comfortable with. So instead, I would say, please allow me. Maybe we can talk about a different arrangement for our next date, and then that can carry on to a conversation about your next date. But also, it shows her that you will be somewhat open to a conversation about it. Even though I would not allow her to later, we would then be able to have that conversation after our date to where it doesn't ruin that first date.
Yes. And that's actually what I was going to bring up here, dude. There is something that I fear more than what's the way to communicate this? I'm pretty insistent on paying for the date myself as well, but there is a point where if I'm more afraid of causing a fight. So if she's going to actually fight you on it, I mean, I might, and I don't know if this is right of me, but at that point I might back off. And I'm not saying that's a good thing about my nature, but if she's going to actually fight you on paying for the first date, like if she's going to cause a scene, like literally like an altercation right there in front of the world and just everything, I might back off if I were you. Again, you're not trying to combat with this woman. You're trying to just give her a good time. So if anything that gets in the way of that could be a problematic.
To me, it's like, if my wife were to say, no, I'm going to pay.
Yeah.
That is my personal preference. That is a turn off for me, to where
absolutely
that's
same
something
here
that I'm not going to pursue. after this date.
Right.
So I think it is best to, there is some sort of tension, it is best to say, hey, I really appreciate that, but I would like to pay this time, and maybe we can discuss different plans for the next time. And
You can make it a matter of conscience.
yeah,
Yeah.
usually that will cut down the tension to where you can then have that conversation, and maybe she'll be more open once she gets the motive. Because I know that some people feel that that is a diss on their financial situation. You assume that the
Right.
woman is
Right.
not
Yeah.
able. But maybe after the date, you can then explain it's not that I don't think you can, it's that
Right.
I would not feel comfortable with you doing
Yes.
so.
It's a
And
violation of my conscience. Yeah.
right, it would make me, and you can even make it a little bit self-deprecating. You can say it would make me feel like I am not treating you properly,
Right. Amen. That's a
and
great way to do it.
make it
Yeah.
your conscious that you are not
That's huge. Yeah.
treating her properly, and that'll kind of alleviate the tension.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the way he says it here. He says the way you'll notice the way this guy's really good at this. But the way he says to handle it is not make it when the waiter asks like, "Are you on the same check?" or "Who's paying?" or something to that nature. The way he handles it or suggests you handle it totally avoids any altercation happening because he just says you just immediately take action. It's just like
Yeah,
it's my pleasure, and that
go
card is already in the waiter's hand. So then she's gonna actually have to get it from the waiter in order to
Right.
change things. So I think he's handled that beautifully. His next subheading is the door. Walk her to the door is his closing one. Again, this is a great one when I would say just offer her your arm, walk her back in. Again, another great opportunity to say hello to her parents. Just, basically this is the time when you get to kind of brag on yourself to the dad. I brought your daughter home in the way I said, in one piece, safely. She had a great time, and I respect you guys. I know you're probably worrying about her if I'm keeping her out later than I told you she'd be back. And then again, same thing you're making sure thoughtful to the woman. You're making her sure she gets to the door safe. You're making sure there's somebody home to let her in. She's not locked out. It's just plain chivalrous. So absolutely do it. He says you want to see that she gets safely into her place. As you walk her to the door, offer her your arm. Again, this is pretty much the same exact thing I'm telling you. It's a non-threatening way to initiate body contact without seeming like a perv. Another great point. It's great to have the romantic sparks in a date. Appropriate contact is a great thing. And this is one of the only ways that you can initiate physical contact without seeming like a perv. Let's be honest. And again, one of the only ways I would say that you should be initiating physical contact on a date that's not, again, selfishly motivated and immoral. But it says, make your move. This is going to get into the kissing thing, I think. A lot of people have different thoughts on this. Landon, I want to hear what you think. But whether or not there should be kisses on the first date or not, okay. I always erred on the side of caution here because I know you can ruin a perfect date for a woman by crossing a physical boundary with her. And all the work that you've put into that date can immediately go down the drain in this moment. So I usually play it safe. I would give her a hug, not an awkward side hug. I would give her a hug. That's again an affectionate display. It makes it not a business meeting because you've been interrogating each other all evening. That's a bad word too. You've been getting to know each other is a better word. It's not a business meeting. You don't want to make it super formal. You want to make it personal. So hugs are a great way to do that. You can just show affection here with it being appropriate. Landon, what do you think about the kissing thing?
So again, as a more traditional person, I would lean towards the side of maybe a simple hug,
Yeah.
maybe a two kiss on the cheek,
Yeah.
something
Right.
that is not incredibly intimate,
Invasive. Yeah.
invasive. Yeah, it is as simple as nice to meet you. I am still romantically interested in you.
Yeah. I
And
actually had a great
there
time.
is
Want to do it again.
yeah, there is something to be said about physical contact and
Yes, absolutely.
making some sort of physical contact, and you'll be able
Absolutely.
to tell. Me and my wife did kiss on our first date, and
Yeah.
that's not normally something that I would go for, but throughout the date, you can pick up on those cues.
Right.
If
You
you
can
know how
tell.
to
Yes.
pick up on those. If you're on your drive home and you're talking and she holds your hand, that's a cue. Okay, there's something there. She's leaning towards me. She's holding my hand. She's already wanting to be physically in contact with me. And then once you get to the house, you give her the hug. You'll be able to tell if she wants
Right.
to have a kiss when she goes in.
Right.
Also, know your surroundings because she may want to kiss, but that does not mean that the father wants you to kiss her.
Right. Okay.
So
Yeah.
if you are dropping her off at the front door, which you should be, and the father is there, know your surroundings. That,
Yeah.
to me, that is
Right.
something that you would want to be aware of.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is again. I just always err on the side of caution because again, you
It is
can
a
ruin.
gamble.
It's a gamble. It's a gamble, absolutely. But and it's not only a gamble. Like I'm okay with gambles. This is a gamble that you can actually ruin everything up to this point with. So like you've got to be really really careful. And I mean, like it can be a great capstone to an amazing date, or it can literally truck everything that you've done up to this point again with the dad or with her or with anybody, and so just be aware of that. His next rule, he says, and again, something I do want to throw in here, this show is not, I mean, Landon, I don't know what you think on this, but as far as I go, and just I did not make this show to be a Joshua Harris, I Kiss Dating Goodbye echo chamber. We definitely disagree. I definitely disagree with that kind of movement as far as some of the things that it teaches. So when I say don't go for the kiss, I'm not doing it out of some prudish, all physical touch is inappropriate outside of the context of marriage. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, just again, you can truck all your hard work up to this point and ruin any chance that you're ever going to see this woman again by doing something that makes her feel super uncomfortable. And so you're going to want to read her very carefully here. And just, I would play it safe, give her a hug. People are okay with hugs. Just keep it safe.
Yeah.
But again, just wanted to throw that caveat in here.
Yeah, and you have to know yourself well
Right.
enough to know if you're able to pick up on those cues. Those
Right.
social cues. If you
Absolutely.
don't feel like you can pick up on those properly,
Don't go for it.
you do not need to
Absolutely.
go for that.
Amen.
You know yourself. And
If
if
there,
you
yeah.
do not know for a fact that you can pick
Amen.
up on those
Amen.
cues, then 100% err on the side of caution. Don't.
If
do
you're in
it.
doubt, yeah.
Yeah, like when me and my wife came home from our first official date, it was blatantly obvious to me that a kiss was in order.
Mm-hmm.
But if there was even an inkling of doubt,
Right, you wouldn't have done it.
the
Amen.
the answer is no.
Yes. Right. That's good.
It's an
That is true.
absolute no.
Good advice. Good advice. If there's an inkling of doubt, forget the full steam ahead, slam on the brakes. Just make it, save the kiss for when you know full steam ahead is a good idea. It says his next point here is don't go into her house.
Absolutely.
He says first, don't ask if you can come in. It's just sleazy. If she asks, decline. Why? It shows you're a gentleman and she'll respect you even more. Again, this is kind of, I would say, consider the context in which you're doing it. I mean, my wife did ask me to come into her house. Let's see, I think on maybe the second or third date. And again, her motivation behind that was actually getting me to spend more time with her parents. So there is something to consider here, especially if you're not dating a woman that lives alone. If she asks you to come in and she lives alone, that's a surefire indicator that she's doing it maybe out of obligation. She thinks that she owes you sex after the first date, which would be, you need to immediately turn that down and be like, that is not what I'm interested in.
Well,
but if she's asking you to meet her parents and spend time with them, I would say that's a more appropriate reason to accept her invitation, maybe to meet her parents. But that would be the only exception I would say to this rule. Again, don't go into the house, I would say, is a good rule.
Yeah, and not to mention the fact that if you are listening to this podcast, we assume that you are a traditional
Exactly. Yes.
Christian man.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to me, if a woman is inviting me into her house on the first date
And she lives alone.
and she lives alone,
Right. That says something
that
that you
tells me that this
would not
may
want-
not
yeah.
be the woman that I want to spend
Amen.
the second date with.
Yeah.
But like you said, she may feel like she is inclined to. So that tells you need to maybe not outright ask why, but maybe be vigilant the next time you hang out of how this is going to move forward and what
Yeah.
are her intentions
Absolutely.
with you, because we look at this as a traditional person and we think a lot about, in the old days we talked about the man's intention with the woman, but there is something to be said about nowadays. There can be that situation where the woman has a different intention than the man. And
right.
It can still be disordered the other way around.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I think that you have to protect yourself as well as protecting her.
Right. Absolutely. I think that's all, again, good common sense stuff that, again, if you're a young believer, ages 18 to 24, looking to get married young as soon as possible, and you're a, an actually devout follower of Jesus Christ, then you're probably not going to be, again, a lot of what Lane and I am saying is probably not going to strike you as offensive. And so we don't usually add a lot of clarifiers when we say our opinion on this stuff. And so it says if she's not there, leave. His next point is call her the next day. This is the follow-up to the date. Call her the next day. Again, Brett McKay seems to be a big proponent of calling, and I do really like calling, again, with a harkening back to the caveat that some people do not answer the phone. They simply will not talk on the phone. So if you are dating a person like that, you can send a voice message or communicate in some way with your voice, however you want to do that. But it says if she's not there, leave a message, thank her, and asking her to call back. If she doesn't call back within 48 hours, give her another call. If she still doesn't call back, learn to take a hint and pursue other options. I don't know if I might differ from Brett McKay a little bit here. He says give her another call if she doesn't call back within 48 hours. I might not do that. And Lane, I want to hear your thoughts on this, but I tend to err on the side of if a woman is interested, she's going to let you know that. It's very easy for her to do so. She's not the one actually having to step out on a limb and communicate her interest. She's just having to reciprocate. And so if she doesn't even reciprocate and kind of match your expressions of interest and romantic interest, then she's probably not interested, is how I would interpret that. And so if she doesn't answer you back at all, I'm not going to put a timestamp on it. He says 48 hours. I'm not going to put a timestamp on it. If she doesn't answer you back at all when you follow up on the date, I probably would not follow up a second time. I mean, maybe I would once, but then after that, definitely no further than that. Lane, what do you think?
I don't want to criticize, the author here, but at the same time, I think that it is somewhat not really out of touch, but just not modern to assume. When he says to call her, he automatically says if she's not there. Well, that assumes we've called a landline, and she wasn't.
Oh, okay, right.
So that's the way that I read that, and to me, it's like, okay, maybe give her that call. This is the way I would do it. Give her a call to her cell phone. If she doesn't respond, maybe shoot a text. It's a little bit less of a little bit less formal, a little bit less evasive.
Right.
Just a text or a message of whatever, right. However you all were communicating before. That would be the way to communicate with her again. So I would maybe give her the call the day after the date, tell her you enjoyed the date, you'd like to see her again, and if she doesn't call back, then maybe shoot a text saying, just restating what you said in the call, and then leave it at that. It gives it a, hey, I didn't know if you got my call or got my voicemail.
Right.
I wanted to make sure. And then you can pursue other options just so you don't leave any stones unturned. Absolutely.
Because the last thing you want to do is, stop pursuing a woman who is interested and who you were really interested in. I mean, that is just the worst. I mean, that's a whole life story that could have unfolded with kids and grandkids and the most beautiful marriage you can imagine that's just been thrown down the drain because you wouldn't follow up. So, I mean, absolutely on point there. And I do want to throw out the warning that I'm not saying, like, I know there's nuance to this. For example, that voice message that I told you I sent my wife asking her out on, she ghosted me on that for 6 months. And it gets a little bit more complicated than that. But she was interested. So my point is, like, that's not always a surefire indicator that somebody is not interested in you. But, like, most of the time in my experience, if somebody's not actively responding to your texts or your calls or your, investments and that kind of thing, they're usually not interested. But again, anything could happen. Just be aware of the fact that things may happen. People do miss calls, things kind of like that. So just be aware of that, but also know that oftentimes that is an indicator that somebody's not interested. He says, this is a couple of Brett McKay's suggestions for the best first date. A lot of you might be wondering, what in the world are you supposed to do for a first date? And he's going to give you like 8 things here that are really going to help you there. These are things that he wants a first date to be. Number 1 is affordable. Again, there's no guarantee that this relationship is going to go anywhere. So for you to drop, $1.5 grand on this date is probably not going to be a smart money investment. Because again, this woman is not connected to you and is not communicated any commitment to you in any context at all. So it'd be kind of stupid to throw that much money down the drain if there's not that commitment there again. So I think that's pretty pretty common sense, with the caveat that again, you are wanting to not be afraid to spend money on her because you're wanting to show her that you are, capable of providing. You do care about her, you love her, you want to shower her with good things and bless her and that kind of thing. It says the chance to converse freely. Again, that's another thing you want to consider. You're going to want to be able to talk. Like if your date doesn't provide you with what he calls ample face-to-face time, probably not a good idea for a first date. Again, because you're not getting to know this person. He says novelty is another great thing that he wants a first date to have, and I really like this one. Don't take her on something standard. Don't take her on something that like 5 other guys have taken her on. You want to set yourself apart. You want to be the best dude that she's ever been on a date with. Like, right? You want to make the best first impression. You want to be the best at taking her out on this date of anybody she's ever been with. So make it novel. Like, make it something new and exciting about it, or new and something that she's never experienced before. And we have lots of great ideas for those of you who are looking for novel ideas for your first dates. Go back and check out our best date episodes. We have one on the best coffee date, the best movie date, the best hiking date. We're going to put on a lot more in the future, but make it special. Don't make it standard. You're not a standard guy. Don't advertise yourself as a standard guy. He says a backdrop that provides for easy conversation fodder. So that would go back to what Landon said about like playing music in the background that you can then talk about and create. It's a conversation generator. You have something there to talk about. That's great. He says that these are his actual recommendations for a first date. Landon, I'll just run through these really quick and then I'll just get your take on them. He says a museum is really good. Mini golf is really good. Trivia night, pottery painting. That's an interesting one. I've actually done that one myself. Minor league sports game, picnic, a tea house or room. And those are his, amusement park. That's that's a really interesting one. I think that one might be really good. And then those were his. Any of those stick out to you, Landon? And if so, which one?
Yeah, I've done a few of these. I would
Yeah.
say that my personal favorite date is pottery painting. And I
Okay.
think that
Yeah.
doing that on a first date would be awesome.
Yeah.
And the great thing is I am not an artist. I'm not good at producing art, but this gives you a opportunity to be vulnerable in your first date with this woman.
Yes.
And
Amen.
to
Yeah.
not have to show her, not feeling that you have to show her what you're great at.
Yes.
And I think that is awesome. And if my wife was here, she would tell you that this would be the best first date for her. And
Yes.
if I'd have known that at the time, that's what we would have done.
Right. Yeah.
And we ended up doing that later on
Yeah.
in our relationship. But I think that is huge. I think
That's good.
museums are really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be a really, really cool date.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how on board I'd be with trivia night.
Yeah.
I think that
Get some hot topics there.
well, not only that, but like the trivia nights I've been to are usually somewhat rowdy. They get loud, and that's fine if that's what you want to advertise. But for me personally, that's not the type of
Right.
person that I would want to advertise
Right.
myself as this super competitive and loud and rowdy guy.
Yeah, dude, I agree with you. There's a lot of shouting used, especially if there's a competitive element to the trivia. Any kind of competition. I think competition is okay. It can make your date, a little bit more exciting, but you also want to keep that reined in. I don't think that competition is usually conducive to, creating a healthy dating environment. Because again, like, are you competing with? And I have kind of controversial opinions on this. So, if you disagree and you have a really healthy marriage with lots of competition, that's great. But my wife and I don't really compete because, again, we're on the same team. We're working together to beat problems. We're not just sort of fighting each other to get stronger in our individual selves. And so just that wouldn't be a good first day for us for those reasons. But I like what Landon said. Museum's great. I actually have done mini golf, pottery painting, picnics. Those three I've done several times. Amusement parks, I've done similar things to that. So these are going to be really common dates for you to go on. I think he's got a great list here. Picnics are really good opportunities for you to show effort and planning. You can show off your planning effort, cooking skills here. You can show off your location selection skills here. You can show off your thoughtfulness here. There's a lot of good stuff you can show off on a picnic. So really good one here. Does have the limit.
A picnic would be the one of the best if you're really wanting to show, your prowess. If you're wanting to be
Yeah,
able to
yeah,
look at this location that I found,
yeah.
here's something that really I've put a lot of effort into,
Yes.
and I
Yeah.
like what he says here,
Planning.
showing an impressive location, especially one with a perfect view of the sunset, will score you big points. Women like a man who's got a scout-like knowledge of terrain. I
Yeah.
really like that, and
Yeah.
I think that goes a long way.
You can show off so many skills on a picnic. I would say the biggest weakness that a picnic has is you're vulnerable to idiots in public, for lack of a better phrase. I mean, your date is vulnerable to crazy people making your date feel uncomfortable. I've been in situations where I've come up with a really, really thoughtful date and implemented it to like really perfectly. I was so proud, so excited, and so just elated that it was going the way it was. And then some hobo walks up, not to condemn these people, but like, and just ruins the entire date by plopping right down in the middle of your picnic. And you're like, nobody would ever do that to you. And I'm like, yeah, it's happened, bro. So you've got to take into consideration just the environment that you're in. Just anything can happen as far as people. People will do anything that could potentially ruin your date. They'll be screaming, rowdy teenagers shooting down the street 90 miles an hour in a car, revving their engines. A train could go by. A person could walk up and ask you to have a cigarette. I mean, anything can happen. So just be aware of that. People will bomb your dates. Also, you're vulnerable to weather in picnics. I mean, even the best laid plans go awry is really true when it comes to a thunderstorm, especially April, May time frames, right in the middle of when this is being recorded. Not the best time for picnics. It can look beautiful when you set the picnic up, and then 30 minutes later, you can be running for the car. And so just take that into consideration. Again, if you get rained out, it's not the end of the world. It can be a really cute story that you have to look back on together. But I really like the picnic one. That's the one that sticks out most to me. He actually has another article here that I do want to briefly touch on before we wrap this episode up. It's Better First Date Questions is what he entitles the article. And this is going to kind of go through what you want to do on a first date as far as the conversation and how you can show off your conversation skills, what questions to ask. The big thing I'll tell you before I jump into this article, and I'll get what Landon thinks on this, is you need to ask why questions instead of what or what questions. So instead of asking her, what do you like to do in your free time, or what is your degree, or what college did you go to, or what career are you interested in, or something like that, you can ask that starting off. That's a great way to just break the ice. But then when she tells you, because the what questions are one word answer questions. It's like, what school do you go to? I go to Harvard. I go to OU. I go to SSU. I go to ACTC. Okay. That's the end of that conversation unless you can do something with it. So ask her the what question, like, what do you like doing? She'll give you a hobby. For example, I like doing this. We do this a lot. If she's a super skilled conversationalist, she might even elaborate on that answer. So she might, I like to knit. It's actually something I got into with my mom because of this or whatever. And then I would follow that up with, why is that something that you chose to do above other things, or something like that? Why did you choose to knit above other, fine motor skill activities? Why did you choose to go to the school that you did? Why did you choose to go pursue the career that you did? Because then that gives her the opportunity to be a little bit more vulnerable. Like Landon said, okay, you know what my degree is now. Now you're asking me to tell you why I chose it. That gets into like a real personal area of what her character is. Like if she were to ask me, what do you do for a living? I would say teaching. But if she were to ask me, why do you teach? That's a lot more personal. And so that gives her the opportunity to be vulnerable if she wants. And it's a lot more open-ended, and the conversation can go a lot more places. So, that's the main thing I would tell you. He says how to ask a first date questions, with the standard question, interesting follow-up method. So he's going to give you a kind of a method here, that I'll go through for you. He says the beauty of the standard question, interesting follow-up approach is that it will not take your first date, is that it will take your conversation to places where you'll indirectly get to know a whole lot about the other person without directly and awkwardly having to ask them, what is your deepest fear? Or where do you see yourself in 5 years? Those are pretty standard questions. Again, more business-like interview questions than than a date question, I would say. While your questions should be thought provoking, your partner should be able to answer them without missing too much of a beat. People feel dumb when they have to do the well, oh boy, that's a tough one thing and struggle to come up with a response. A good gauge of whether a question hits the sweet spot is to simply ask yourself the question and see if you both enjoy thinking about it and can pretty readily imagine how you'd respond. Also, remember that a conversation isn't an interrogation. That's what I was going to say. This is not a job interview. You don't want to ask question after question without sharing anything about yourself. So pepper in some things about yourself. That's a pretty good one too. You do want to be careful of being narcissistic here, though. There's nothing more burning out than talking to someone who can only talk about themselves for 30 minutes or so. That's really exhausting. So don't do that. Be aware of that. Ask her questions as well. Landon, any thoughts on what we've covered so far here?
Yeah, I think the last sentence there is really important. Of course, if your date is a conversational narcissist, it's likely an ill omen of things to come. So, kind of what you were saying, if you, he says to sprinkle in some details about yourself, and try to, have the conversation going both ways, but don't get like super uncomfortable and feel like you have to drag this date along. If it's not going the way you want. You do have the ability to just wrap it up, try to speed things along and maybe just get out of there for the rest of it. I've been blessed to not have a awful first date, but I know that happens.
That has happened. Yeah, right. Yeah, I would say just don't be too self-centered in your talk. Don't only talk about yourself and talk about stuff that she has no connection to you on. Like, don't bring up biking if she's not a biker. That's a dumb idea. Don't talk about biking for 15 minutes if she can't talk about it. Talk about things that you can find common ground on and that she's actually capable of talking about and generating value in a conversation. But also ask her questions. So like, don't just talk about things that you can talk about. I would ask her things.
Well, and we have such a cool advantage nowadays of social media.
Yeah, that's true.
And before going on the first date with my wife, I knew what we had in common, and I knew that I could strike up conversation about working out. I could strike up conversation about things like that, and it would carry our conversation along. And I knew that she did art, and I love art, and I was able to ask those types of questions that took the pressure off of both of us. It made it just a natural conversation because we already knew something about each other.
Yeah, you didn't have to find the areas that you had in common. You actually already knew them going in. That's truly huge, dude. I mean, and a lot of people's response to that will be like, well, women don't like to be stalked. You shouldn't be stalking her Facebook profile and figuring all these things about her prior to meeting her. And my response to that is just, well, if she wouldn't be putting on the line if she didn't want people to read it. I mean, if people put a blog out on the internet, they actually like it when people read it. Believe it or not, I actually like it when people listen to this show. I don't just put this out on the internet and then accuse people of stalking me if they actually listen to the content I produce,
In other cases, you may have been introduced by a friend, and that gives you an opportunity to ask that friend, "Hey, tell me a little bit about her, so that I know what I should bring
Absolutely,
up, what I should conversate with her about, and just see what you have in common with her before you even go on the date, because you have some sort of connection."
Absolutely.
For instance, with me and my wife, she was already friends with my sister-in-law, who wasn't my sister-in-law yet.
Okay.
But was it the fiance of my brother?
Cherith.
Yeah, so they already knew each other.
Yeah.
So I was able to say, tell me a little bit about Maddie, not only just so I have conversation, but is she a good girl? Like, is this something that I should pursue?
Absolutely,
Do you think that this is something that is worthwhile? And when you have those resources, not using them is not... You're not being very prudent.
And not doing yourself any favors.
You're not being a good steward of what you have. So
absolutely,
need to just go ahead and try to get as much material as you can.
To
take that uncomfortable atmosphere out of the first date.
Absolutely. And guys, the stalking thing, that is a totally misapplied. Stalking a girl that implies malicious intent. that implies sort of this weird, I'm pursuing you even if you don't like me type thing. That implies all this stuff that is not true when you're just getting to know a woman based on how she
for
presents
one,
herself to the world.
I don't really like strangers knowing too much about me, so I don't post much on my social media.
Right, exactly.
If I don't want people to know that I'm going to the beach, and
Then you don't post it.
I'm not going to post
exactly.
it. So
if a girl's posting something,
if
she wants people to see it. Yeah,
exactly. Going to her and saying, "Listen, I looked at your Instagram page. I really
exactly. There's nothing wrong with that.
Post, I like your art, whatever like that. That only shows that you were not only interested in talking to her, but just interested in finding out who she was as a person.
Getting to know her. Yes, there's nothing wrong with that. Literally nothing wrong with that. So don't feel any shame about doing that. Like, get to know her. See what her bio says. Like, if she's interested in certain things, see if she has a link in her profile. If she does some sort of cool artsy thing, like Landon said. See, like Landon went in knowing Maddie like CrossFit and art and stuff like that. Like, you've gotta have some good knowledge going in. If you don't do that, like I think like Landon said, you're just not taking advantage of your resources that you've been given. Absolutely. That's really good. So, guys, we're going to wrap this up. I hope we've generated a lot of value for you guys as far as how you should behave on your first date and kind of what you should do on the date, how you should conduct yourself, good dating etiquette, solid ways to plan. I hope we've generated value for you on all of those fronts, how to carry conversation, that kind of thing. If you've gotten value out of this, reach out and let us know what it was, what helped you the most, and let us know how your dates go. In the show notes, we have a link with a voice message. If you use anything at all that we told you in this video, let us know how it worked. If you want to improve on what we said or give us your experience with it, absolutely, we would love to hear those. It'd make us feel super connected to you. It would make this podcasting thing two-way instead of just a one-way street. So definitely reach out and let us know, either through social media or through the link in the show notes. You can send us a voice message letting us know how these things went on your date. Thank you so much for listening. Congratulations for getting the date with a woman. If you're listening to this episode, you've probably got a date locked in and you're looking to improve your first date and you're looking to make sure it goes as well as possible. So that means you got the date. Congratulations, man. That's already a huge accomplishment in and of itself. That's a huge step of the journey towards marriage, is getting that first meeting. So, I mean, awesome. Good job for you. Really proud of you. You can do this. God has great things for you. Thank you so much for listening today. Landon and I will talk to you next time. Follow us on social media, Instagram and Facebook, if you're interested for the content we post, and we will see you guys later.